Hi everybody, and welcome back to Blogger Interview Podcast with Kate Luella, that's me, of the productcreatorshub.com. Today I've got a lovely interview with a lovely lady by the name of Kellie, who lives in central New South Wales. Her blog is called 5littleflags.blogspot.com. And Kellie has been blogging now for a while. It's something that she wasn't comfortable with at first. I think a lot of bloggers are that way. But she is what I call an altruistic blogger. So she writes because she wants to write. It's a bit of an outlet for her. She shares her journey with her family goings-ons. And in particular, it's quite an emotional blog, her blog, as she does document her emotional times with her children. So Kellie actually has 5 children with her husband, and unfortunately 2 of them have already passed away. One of her boys, Milo, was born stillborn, and one of her daughters, named Daisy, passed away at age 3. Daisy was quite badly disabled and did fight so hard for so long, as did Kellie and her husband, to keep her around. They do still have 3 other children though, Ruby, Felix and Clementine, whom Kellie still does blog about. Well, she blogs about them all. Felix is what you would call normal able child. He's like the rest of us. And Ruby and Clementine do have their challenges. And Kellie sort of touches on that without going into it too much. I also know that it can be tough living with a disabled child. But there are so many good points to that life as well as bad. You know, that's one thing I think Kellie and I agree on. But it is tougher. It's harder work raising a disabled child. There's no doubt about it. And she is such an inspiration to read her blog. I tell you, it will blow you away the way she talks about her life, and her coping mechanisms are just profoundly empowering and calming. She, you know, to talk to her, I'll let you see what you think, but I've found her really amusing and, you know, a wonderful personality. So I hope you enjoy this interview. Thank you so much for talking to me, Kellie, because I've actually read your blog for a long time. And do you remember you used to have those little flags? Were you selling them on? Okay. Do you still sell them or create them? Or?
Well, I can still create them, but I just haven't because they're really time consuming. And
Right.
I sold a few, but I just thought it was just something I wanted to see. That was the first time I'd done anything like that, and I just thought I wondered how they would go. But I haven't. I've still got some. I've sold a few, but I'd like to. Yeah, you know, if anyone ever wants them, I'm happy to make them. But yeah,
Right.
I've sort of stopped it for a little while. I just have so much on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I know. Look, I should clarify. We're talking about the bunting
Yes.
flags.
Yeah.
Yes, little,
Yeah.
the gorgeous little. I suppose for little girls, isn't it? Really.
Yeah. Oh, well, for
Pink.
whoever. I've got them all hanging around my house, so
I was
yeah.
gonna-
I'll be
Oh
grabbing my
yeah, your
flag.
husband must love
He
them.
does. Yeah.
No, fair enough. And look, we're all crafters at heart.
Yeah.
It's just only some of us can actually do
Yeah.
it, you know. No, that's fine. Well, look, I really want to talk to you about your blog, and it's funny because it's called 5 Little Flags.
Yeah.
5littleflags.blogspot.com.
Yeah.
And this, and I just wondered, is that because you've got 5 kids or because of your flags, or is that all
No, I think it
interrelated?
just started. I think when I was selling them on Etsy, I had to think of a little name, and I thought, well, I have 5 children and I'm selling flags.
Okay.
And so, yeah, that's really how it came from. Sometimes I
Yeah.
wonder about changing the name of the blog, but I don't know.
Right.
I don't think that too far ahead.
No, but I don't think you need to because you do have 5 kids and
Yeah.
kind of relevant then in that way. So,
Yeah.
and that's also how people know you too. So it's always,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but and I understand that. So, now I do want to talk to you very briefly though, because I don't want to get emotional.
Yeah.
Just about, you know, your journey, because you do blog an awful lot about your private memories
Yeah.
and your journey. And I'd love to sort of hear just an overview of like how that evolved to you writing the blog
Yeah.
about it. Is that
Well, no, that's fine. I think I started blogging at the end of 2011. I think I only wrote 3 posts, but I didn't publish them until January 2012. And
right?
that was a big step because
Okay.
this is going to sound nuts. I'm a really private person, and
Yeah.
but when our little one Milo was stillborn 9 years ago, I went through this period of wanting to read about other people in that situation, and it never occurred to me to go online at all. I read lots of books about families, like real life stories of families. I tried to read as much as I could get my hands on of people who'd lost a child. And then when our little Daisy was born and she was so sick, not straight away, but towards, well, actually, not even while she was still alive. It was after she died. I started to find blogs that I found a few nice, pretty houses and design and that sort of stuff. I think I was looking at those, but I don't know
Mm,
how I found a couple of American blogs where of mums who'd lost children in various circumstances, not always the same way we had, and
mm,
like older children, and that just was amazing to me that they could write this and put it out there, and it was
mm,
so inspiring,
mm,
and ever since my eldest Ruby was born, I was always asked, not, well, it was always mentioned to me that maybe I should write things down and write it down. And I did. I used to keep a diary when she was little, but
right,
I think I just started writing letters to Daisy. And then it got to
mm,
the point, not online, but then it got to the point where my Felix, who's now 10, um, he doesn't remember. He was such a huge part of. He was so involved in Daisy's care, but he was only 6 when she, not in her actual care, but he was such a part of all of it. She was such a part of our family, and he
mm,
loved her so much. But I look at him now and I ask him things, and he doesn't remember a lot of her alive with us. And so I
mm,
started to write it down, but even he doesn't read the blog, and I
right,
think I just said to my husband one day and to Felix, because really they're the ones who will affect that, what did they think about it? And I might have
mm,
shown them a few things of blogs that I'd found, blogs that I don't even look at much anymore, that I can't even really remember. I'm so vague. I feel like my whole life is such a blur, but I think I just started and I said to them, would they mind? And I only wanted first names and really no, we're in rural New South Wales, but I'm not comfortable yet saying where we are. And
mm. No,
yeah,
neither do I.
yeah.
Don't worry, it's
So
coming.
yeah, so I think that's really just how I started. And so I
Yeah,
started writing a couple of things and didn't publish, and then I thought, oh, I'll see how that goes. It still amazes me truly that people even read it, because
right.
it is such a personal thing, but it
Mm,
is out there for anyone to read. Does that
yeah.
answer your question?
Yeah, no, it
Yeah.
absolutely
Yeah.
does. So it really, you just sort of, I guess your writing is a coping mechanism, isn't
Oh,
it?
absolutely. I don't write about half the stuff that goes on really with my Ruby. It's such a challenging life with her. She's really,
Right.
really
How old is
challenging.
she
She's
now? Sorry.
14. Yeah.
Okay.
And
What's her diagnosis?
well,
Is
she's
that
diagnosed with Zunich K syndrome, or CHIME. The other,
right?
CHIME is the other name for it. And it's just a
Mm,
combination of health issues, and
yeah.
she has lots of renal problems, and was born with the
Uh,
kidney, with renal and heart and craniofacial problems, and she's been through an awful lot in her little life. And I think
mm,
we have no idea what the future holds for her. She's really
mm,
struggling health-wise at the moment. We're about to go and see a surgeon about her kidneys again, and that's been a
mm,
huge shock, because we thought that was done and dusted when she was little. But the
mm,
older she gets, she's not formally diagnosed with autism, but I've diagnosed her with autism. She's so autistic in so many
yeah.
ways, and really quite manic in behaviours.
Right.
And having said all that, she's a beautiful kid, and she's just oh, she's a real trooper. She's
Mm,
gorgeous, but
mm. Yeah, it's hard.
it's really hard. And
Yeah. See, my daughter is autistic.
yeah,
Did you see that? Yeah, she's nonverbal, but she doesn't have. I think your daughter has a little bit more physical. What do they call, like stimming and stuff like that?
yeah, she seems to. How old's your daughter?
She's nearly 5.
Oh, is she? Yeah. Well, Ruby's
Yeah.
nonverbal too. And
Okay.
the older Ruby got, the worse that sort of behavior became for us. She was never
Right.
diagnosed ever when she was little. And we look back now, and when she was 3, she used to line things up. And I think that's such a classic
Mm, yeah.
um,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
you know
No,
what I
of,
mean?
of yeah,
Yeah.
of autism. No, it
Yeah.
is. Although my daughter does it rarely. But that's the thing. Like
So,
they kind of all do things just a little bit different.
yeah. Well, such a wide
Just a
spectrum. Yeah.
yeah, bit of this, a bit of that, and it's usually the mums who really nail the
Yeah, I
diagnosis
think
because
so.
yeah, you go see doctors, you try and tell them, and it's just somehow some gets lost in translation what you
Yeah,
see, and you just know. So
yeah, I know.
I totally get that you know what her issues are.
Yeah, but I mean, she's very social, and
Right, right.
she's very, very clingy since Daisy died, particularly. I think I wonder what goes on in her little head. She must think, well, if
Yeah.
Daisy's gone, Mum might go too, and
Now you said she's
she's
13.
14.
It's 14.
Yeah.
Does she communicate in any way, like with writing or
Oh
with an
no,
iPad or
no.
nothing at all?
No, has gestures, and she makes her needs known very well. She has great
Right.
tantrums for us, so you really know
Okay.
what's going on. Very
That's
frustrating.
effective. I know that one.
But you sort of get to know, and we started off using Makaton, which is the keyword signing for children with speech delay, and she's sort of
Right.
never really picked that up. But she's just, she can go and get herself a drink and things like that now.
Right.
So in some ways, that's sometimes more of a hindrance than a help. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I just feel that we know what she's, I feel that a lot of the time you do know what she needs, and
Yeah. Yeah. And look, I know too, because we have specialists, as I'm sure you do, who come in sometime like intervention and
yeah,
and they mean well and they say, you should do this and that. And you think, well, you know what? You're here for what, 2 years and then you're
that's
off.
it.
So I'm going to do
Yeah,
it my way because
yeah,
it's
yeah.
going to be my problem, not
That's
yours. And,
right. Yeah, whatever
but I mean, they
suits
mean
you.
well. I get that. So, well, look, I'm just thinking, so no, with Felix, of course, he's doing really well, isn't he?
Yeah, so when Ruby was born, it was a one-off um, thing. They all said to us that it was never going to happen again. It wasn't genetic, it was
Right.
a one-off. And so we went
Mm.
ahead and had another little boy, baby, and he looked, it didn't even, it sounds nuts now, but it didn't even occur to me that something might be wrong, purely because she was born overseas, and the geneticist over there is very high in his field, and the one we see here is as well. And they were all convinced it was a one-off thing, and it wasn't, we weren't to worry about having more children. So we went along and had Felix, and he's fine. He's a 10-year-old boy, and he's very healthy. So well, they're all blessings, but he's been a real blessing as well. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm just trying to clarify though. You did mention Daisy, and she's passed away, hasn't she?
Yeah. So she was, yeah,
How old was she when she
she
passed
was 3. So that was
away?
4 years in July, that will be.
See, I'm going to get emotional. We can't talk about it. I
Yeah.
can't do it.
Oh, it was her birthday last week, 7, and that was. But
I know.
she was born looking very healthy on ultrasound, and was born having seizures for the first night, and then just really went downhill from there. And
Mm.
but she doesn't really have an official diagnosis. We're not sure if it's a really severe form of the syndrome, or if it's another one-off thing, which blows my mind to even think about. It could be another different thing.
Yeah,
She and Ruby have seizures in common, and her head, Daisy's was very small, and Ruby's was quite large. Like the sort of craniofacial stuff is a little bit
mm.
similar, but so she, yeah. So
Is there
we,
is there any is there any other issues like with you and your husband though? I mean, this is just
no,
yeah,
no.
just one of those can't predict it.
Yeah, can't predict it, but it does look now, after all these years, that there is a genetic, yeah, there does seem to be a genetic link. Yeah. I'm not really good
Yeah.
with all the official terms.
No,
So
no, no.
but
But so with your blogging, well, we'll just move on a little bit
yeah.
then. So with your
Yeah.
blogging, as we said, the writing sort of helps you a lot,
Yeah.
which is great. What about your hubby? Does he have anything to help him cope with all this?
I just said to him a little while ago, because he's working from home today, that you'd asked in your questions that you emailed me,
Yeah.
and I said, I'm not going to speak for you because that's
Yeah.
his thing. But
Yeah.
he has a really intense job, and so he's very lost in his work. But he's a really great dad. He's beautiful with those
Yes.
kids, and
Yeah.
really helps me. But his thing, we're on a property, so he's very much one of those guys who gets out and does stuff and doesn't talk a
Okay.
lot about
Yeah.
things, but he gets out, and he'll make things or fix something, and I think that is really his therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the fact that you seem, quite I don't know, I'm not going to say grounded, but you seem to have somehow continued to cope. And I think
Yeah.
that if he wasn't coping, you wouldn't. So it kind of, I knew there was some strength in him because otherwise
Yeah.
it would be hard on
Well, he's
you.
had a really, I look at him and I find him very inspiring because really, Ruby was born in Holland, where he's from, and
Right.
he, I said to him, Ruby spent her whole first year in and out of hospital in Holland, and just with the language barrier, I speak some Dutch, but not enough to get by really well in hospital over there, and having a first baby away from home and needing to be near my family. And I remember saying to him, the year she was born, before she was born, we talked about staying there until she was born and seeing how we went. We had no idea she was so sick. And
Right.
so we certainly moved back to Australia a lot quicker than I think we expected. But I think he's had a really rough trot. He lost a parent, and since he's been over here, and and just with what we've been through, and I just look at him and think he speaks English over here. I think that fascinates me that someone can wake up speaking a second language after growing up
Wow.
with a different one for a start. But
Mm, mm,
to get work here and to just have a life here, I think that's really incredible. And
mm.
he's never complained. And I know when I lived over there, I did lots of complaining about being a
Right.
mum and, not having my
Mm.
family and a sick little girl. And so hats off to him. I think he's really, he's really amazing, actually. Yeah. That's not to
Yeah.
say
Well,
marriage is, I think what we've been through, it's certainly not easy, and it's certainly not all
no.
roses at all. But
No,
yeah, I think there's a
no,
bit of,
but you do live in that lovely area, obviously, where you are.
yeah.
The photos on your blog is
Oh,
just
it's
amazing.
so lucky. It's really
Yeah,
beautiful. Yeah.
so jealous. But anyway,
Yeah.
I do say that to my husband every now and again. We've got to move. I want
Yeah.
more land.
Well,
But
this is where I grew up, and we only came back because Daisy was so sick and I needed to be near my family. We were in Sydney with no family support, and
yeah,
and the way we found this block of land, we were just out driving one day looking around for a property to, we had no thoughts really about building a house or anything, and we came across
right.
a tiny sign that said.
Oh
A
my
property for
gosh.
sale, and we went and met this fellow. It was a private sale, and he had some goats, and one of his goats' name was Milo, which was our little boy who was stillborn. And
Oh,
I look for signs like this all the time. And
okay.
anyway, we didn't end up buying that property, but we bought one a
Oh,
couple of doors down a little while later. And I think it was just the way things have worked out with us, the kind of meant to be thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I
no,
feel really grateful, so grateful to be here. Yeah, it's lovely.
yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously your family are close by, which is fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, that must be something at
It
least.
is, and it's great for Felix to be around cousins, and because he has, Ruby and Daisy had never spoke to him, and Clementine's
Yeah,
trying hard, and but just to have, yeah, he's got a great little support network of friends and family.
yeah.
Yeah,
See, can I ask you something? It's kind of personal.
yeah,
It's silly to say that because we're talking about personal stuff. But my son, who's nearly six,
yeah,
he's Asperger's, but he's relatively now pretty good now.
yeah,
And he says to me, this is very personal too. He says to me, "Mum, I hate my sister. She doesn't talk to me.
yeah,
I hate that." And I try to explain, as you
yeah,
do as a mum. Oh, but darling, it's difficult for
yeah.
her. And did you ever find Felix like that as well, or is this
Um,
just my son? Or
We've always been really, I mean, he's a really mature kid, and but he's also a 10-year-old boy. Like he's not
yeah,
a saint by any means, but he's a lovely
yeah.
kid. But right from the start, I remember he was 4 years old and he said, "Mummy, will Daisy ever run?" And I said, "No." And will Daisy ever say my name? And Daisy was only 2 then, I think or
Mm,
one, she wasn't even 2, and I said no. And then we have a great pediatrician who has children, and sat down with her, and I said to her, and then he said a little while later, "Mummy, will Daisy die?" So right from the start, the pediatrician and I sat down and explained that yes, she'll probably die, and went through all of
mm,
that. But so right from the start, we've been really honest with him, and it's
right.
now
Mm,
that he'll say things about Ruby that make me giggle because it's such a
mm,
classic 10-year-old boy. He can't drink
mm.
out of the same cup Ruby drank out of because of Ruby's germs.
Right.
But right from the start, I think whenever he asked me anything, I just would say, "Well, Ruby's brain works differently," and we still talk about that. Her brain works very
Yeah.
differently to his, and
Yes. Yeah.
but he started asking about, when we die, who will look after her, and all those really hard questions
Yeah.
that, But you just, I don't know. Well, for us, what's worked is just to be honest with him. They really,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
yeah,
And I am with Liam too, because
yeah.
it's just the only way to deal with it, really.
Yeah, and Ruby doesn't sort of have a lot to do. She doesn't really interact with him. She loves Felix, but she would never ever touch him. She would never. He's actually never known what it's like to share because he's never had to. She's never touched
Right.
his toys or
Okay.
so.
No, see, that's the number one issue for my
Is
son,
it
because my daughter will take the
right?
toys and run off,
Yeah,
and she's just playing and having fun, but he's
yeah,
saying, "Oh,
yeah,
no, don't do that." Oh
yeah,
gosh.
yeah. But it might be
You
an
know,
age thing too. I don't.
I think it is.
Yeah.
But that's why I mentioned, because how old was Felix when the Daisy passed?
He was 6. Yeah,
Okay, yeah, so he's a bit older, but
yeah,
yeah.
and he was with me when she died too.
Yeah.
He really,
Mm,
yeah, I don't
it's just,
know.
I
I
know.
remember though,
So,
Kate, and this will resonate with you because when he was little, I remember we had a beautiful pediatrician in Sydney, and he said to us, "You watch Felix; he'll grow up to be this amazing." Just in his experience of
right,
kids with siblings with special needs, he'll grow up to be
right.
this amazing kid, and
Yes,
you sort of see, I do feel that I don't think he'll be a
it's
doctor or any of
different.
those things, but he does have
Mm,
some empathy for more so,
sensitivity.
yeah, I think more
Yeah.
so than others his age. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah.
Look, I was at Kmart around Christmas, and I was with my daughter, and she just, for some reason, she saw the bikes and she had to go on them, and you know what it's
Yeah.
like, not always
Yeah.
controllable. I go, all
Yeah.
right, you can sit for 1 minute, and that was it. We had to sit for hours. Anyway, this guy came up. He was about 13. Oh no, not 13. He was about 18. And he's working there. And I said, look, I really need help just getting my daughter away from here. Could you somehow, And he said, yeah, sure. And then she has started to have a meltdown. I said, look, I'm just terribly sorry. It's stressful, and she's autistic. And he
Yeah.
goes, that's all right. And she said, my little sister's autistic.
Oh,
I understand.
yeah.
And he helped me. He's only like 18.
Yeah. Oh,
So I mean, wasn't that amazing? I
I
was
think
like,
boys are amazing. I think young men
yeah,
are amazing.
yeah. But look, also I should mention I've got a book I'm writing,
Yeah.
which I'll get you to read when it's finished, called Special Needs Trust Fund Estate Planning. Have you seen that?
No.
No. Okay. So what it is, it's about caring for your disabled children when we're no longer around.
Yeah.
So it's about financially planning for it,
Right.
and the trust fund set up, all that stuff,
Yeah.
so that Felix, for instance, would be the trust fund manager,
Yeah.
but he wouldn't be her carer.
Right.
So in my plan, I call it the surrogate parent plan. It's where someone actually comes in and becomes the parent,
Right. Wow.
and the children
Yeah.
continue in the marital home
Yeah.
as they always have,
Yeah.
and it's maintained by the trust fund,
Yeah.
and so is the worker,
Yeah.
who looks after the kids. Might be a single mum or whoever who needs and has that interest. And then the trust fund manager, like Felix, would come around once a week, maybe take them on trips, make sure the
Oh,
bills are paid,
yeah.
sure there's everything's proper, and yeah, it's really, I mean, because what else are we going to do?
I know.
There's
Well,
nothing.
I think for me, that's the biggest worry of my life is Ruby as an
Mm.
adult, and I worry
I'm
about
going to
that.
help you with that.
Yeah.
This plan is almost foolproof,
Right.
almost, but
Yeah.
it's as good as it can get, as in you just plan ahead. I've got the
Yeah.
spreadsheets that
Right.
you're just going to love
And
it.
when will that be published?
Look, do you know technically
With
I'll
all
be
the other
published?
work you're doing?
Yeah, that's the thing,
Yeah.
because I really want to give it 100% commitment for like about a week. But
Yeah.
I mean, really, it'd probably take me another month or so. But I can get you the draft to
Yeah.
you just so you can read through what the idea
Yeah.
is. There's two planning to it. One is short-term cash flow, which is life insurance,
Mm.
and long-term cash flow is more like assets
Right.
as well as small component of life insurance.
Yeah.
Because as you get older, life insurance gets more expensive. So,
Mm.
yeah, but the book goes through all those issues and talks about what contracts you need, and there are books about it out there, but not really for autistic. And the
Mm.
problem with autistic is they're not really bedridden, but they're
No.
not capable of looking
Yeah,
after
that's right.
themselves. So they
Yeah.
fall through the cracks. But
Yeah.
anyway, I'm not going to talk about that now
Yeah.
because we're off topic.
Okay.
But look, I do want to ask, so with your blog, are you going to just keep writing? Is that going to keep coming?
Yeah, well, it's really funny because, as I said before, it amazes me that people read it, and I'd never set out writing it for other people, and that sounds nuts because it is an online blog. But I would like to keep writing, but I sort of
Mm,
now I think, I don't know where to go. I don't want to be one of the I don't want to have.
Careful.
Pardon?
I know what you're going to
Oh,
say.
no, no, no. I'm not
Oh,
interested in having sponsorship or anything like that. It's a very
yeah,
private, personal sort of a thing.
sure.
And I mean,
Yeah,
I have no, I don't judge anyone for doing whatever they do, but just
sure.
me, that's all how
Yeah,
it started out. And
yeah, yeah,
but I started linking up with some things, like, and I really enjoy that where you find other blogs and you link stuff, and that's been really lovely. And I've also really been taking more of an interest in photography, and there's so much to photograph out here, with the
mm,
views, and I've really found that inspiring. So,
yeah.
but I think I write really for me, and I find it amazing that people read it, and I don't sort of sit and write thinking who's going to read this. It's just really,
No,
yeah, it's hard to explain. It's,
yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
I think a lot of people just like to connect. It doesn't matter how they connect.
That's
So,
right. And I found it
yeah,
amazing the people who've said to me, like anonymously or just,
mm,
commented that it's helped them because honestly, I feel like I'm the last person to help anyone. I feel in most of the time I'm floundering because it's all so it's overwhelming and it's
yeah,
isolating. Grief and disability I find is so isolating and
yeah,
so
painful.
overwhelming.
Yeah,
So, and after there's been a couple of posts that I've written, and I don't write every day, and
no.
but there's been a couple where I've written and I've dreamt about. I had a dream about Daisy, and I never dream about Daisy, so I felt that was really. I find it really therapeutic.
That you can then go write about.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
write sometimes with the thought of, oh, my husband might read this. What will he think? Because I would say this to him, or but and then so it sounds crazy that you write it and you publish it online, but
Not at all. Just sometimes do you write and not publish it? Like you just keep it in your private
there's
journal?
been a lot of where I certainly don't. If I do most of my writing late at night. I'm a real night owl, and then I
Mm.
always leave it to the next day to see whether
Okay.
double
Yeah.
check it and whether I'm still comfortable to write that down or.
Yeah, I understand. No, no, it's fresh eyes, like when you just have a new approach. What about poetry? Do you ever write poetry?
No, I don't.
Yeah. I reckon you'd love that.
Yeah.
Because you've got one on your blog, which
Oh,
is a
that's a
lovely
beautiful
poem.
poem. Yeah.
Yeah.
I found that at Bear Cottage, and Bear Cottage is a palliative children's hospice. There's one in Victoria, I think. They're the same kind. I'm trying to think of the name of the one in Victoria, but this is one run by Children's Hospital at Westmead in Sydney. It's in
Yeah.
Manly, and it's purely a beautiful little home for children who are palliative, being treated palliatively. So we
Oh,
started going down there with Daisy, and we would use it as a respite. So we would go down and stay there, and Daisy would get very well looked after. And it certainly looks nothing like a hospital. It's a beautiful
oh
home
no.
and gorgeous nursing staff, and they were really the only people I could leave Daisy with and know that I could leave her with plenty of people and trust them, but just with the medications and what to do when
Yeah.
she was seizing and those sorts of things. And we were right there too, so we would have a lovely little holiday down at the beach. And also I'd go there for Ruby with we would leave Daisy while I took Ruby to hospital appointments and things. But
Mm,
in the
mm,
quiet room there was that beautiful poem, and I always loved it. And it just sums me right up, the lying awake in bed, worrying about my children, and living out
mm,
here with this gorgeous view and the being,
mm.
in this lovely environment. I just thought it was written just for me. But it
Yeah.
doesn't inspire me to write poetry. It inspires me to
Right.
paint. Being out here, I'm trying to learn to paint. That's what.
There you go. It's
Yeah.
something that's different to write. I remember a blog I found a while back. I've got the name written down of the lady. She was terminal cancer
Yeah.
and she had young kids and she wrote a poem which I loved. I kept it. I'll send it to you if you
Yeah.
want it. A bit soppy, but she wrote it for her kids to say, when I'm gone, read
Yeah.
this, and
Yeah.
it's I'll always be in the snow when it
Mm.
snows and all that stuff.
Oh,
Anyway,
lovely.
but she wrote her big blog, and her blog was very frank and honest. I
Yeah.
don't know if my husband loves me anymore, and this. It
Right.
was really amazing, and the blog still exists. So the
Mm.
husband obviously left it because he
Yeah.
said, "Well, this was our journey," and.
Yeah.
So people do find them, and
Yeah.
you can't predict that. And
No, I've had amazing people who I would never in a million people that I know, and I don't know how they've found it. I have to say, my parents don't even know I'm running a blog, unless
right,
my
okay,
family members have told them. Only because I've not told them because I don't know what they would think. They're not really
internet
not
savvy,
at
or
all, no.
yeah, yeah.
And I say to
I
people when
understand.
I ever, and I find it really hard to tell people I even write a blog. And I say the first thing I always say is there's no last names, there's no identifying anything. There's first names and there's photos. And then I think that
Yeah.
sounds so ridiculous. My kids are on the
Yeah.
internet.
Yeah. The funny, no, there's no names,
But
it's just
yeah,
photos.
it's all about
You
what
know,
my
it's very
kids are up to.
distinctive.
But
But look,
yeah.
I think when you start out the interview, you said to me, "Look, I'm really private," and I think that's just an extension of that. Because
Yeah,
what's online stays
that's
online.
right. Yeah. And
It's
now I
the
look at
two that
Felix and teaching him what, he's going to grow
mm.
up in this world and what's appropriate and what's not. And so
Are you part of any online support groups
no,
or offline?
I'm
No.
not, and I'm not even in an offline way either. When we came back to Australia with Ruby, she was almost one, and I'd never ever heard the term mothers group until we got back to Australia, and so I was never in a mothers group.
Right, right.
And also I remember going along to, I met a lovely friend with a little one with Down syndrome, and she invited me to one of the Down syndrome um, picnics one day in Sydney, and I went along, and that was really gorgeous. And I took Ruby, but we were never sort of. She's always had early intervention, and you meet some great parents, and through her school you meet some great parents. But I
Yeah.
think I think now I don't even want to. I'm not really interested in.
Networking and
Yeah, in doing that sort of
right.
thing. I don't think. I don't know. It's hard to.
But what about writing a book then? So it's that one
Yeah.
way, you know.
I've often thought about that, and I've been told that many times to write a book. And so I think this might have been the first step, really, just writing a blog and seeing what comes out of
Yeah.
me. Because I'll write things down, and and looking at it again the next day, or even looking back now after over what I wrote last year, I think, gosh, where did that come from?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you see, that was your emotion talk.
yeah,
Whereas now you're just relaxed and you
yeah,
know, and you look at that and you go, that's so raw. But
yeah,
at the time it was,
yeah, that's right. So I think that
mm,
is in the back of my mind to write a
mm,
book, but
yeah.
yeah, I don't know the first
So
step.
the blog might be as far as you go from how I sense.
Yeah, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Which is still a lot, by the way,
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
but maybe your blog or whatever, your online, whatever, will change direction a little bit and less blog
yeah,
about private. And maybe, you said you're interested in getting back to the flags and maybe artwork and
yeah. Well, that's been a
might
big
sort
thing.
of evolve that way.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
What about other bloggers who are writing about their life and all that?
Mhm.
Do you have any, I mean, you did say be discreet about your private jet, which is very common, by the way. So
Mm.
I'm not going to shock you when I
No,
say
yeah,
that. But yeah, do you have any other advice? I mean, you didn't tell your parents, but I mean,
yeah.
it doesn't matter. I mean,
But having
most
said that, other
don't.
people might have told them, and it's not certainly not something we bring up ever. Like I don't ever
Yeah,
say, "Oh, I met this person through," or yeah. But
yeah. Yeah.
what was your question? Do I read other?
Advice,
Yeah,
no advice for other bloggers. Maybe they've got trouble, disability in
yeah.
their family. Would you advise they look at blogging, or do you think there's things that are bad about it, or
Yeah. Well, I've been really, really, really lucky to have only had beautiful, supportive comments. I haven't had one comment that's made me think, it's really upset
yeah,
me ever. And
yeah,
that's not to
yeah,
say that will never happen, but at the moment, that's never happened. And
yeah,
I've just met some really beautiful people online, never in person, but just,
mm, mm,
and they tend to be ones who have had a similar, I hate that word, but I'm going to say it, journey. Or
yes, yeah,
but and I think just the advice I would, well, for me, what always is in my head is that this is online. This is going to stay. So when Felix reads about this in 10 years' time, he will still be able to read
mm,
this. And I'm very
yeah,
conscious of when I say I don't write for anyone, think I'm always wondering about him. And I look at him and
yeah,
Ruby now, and I think they're getting older, and that's why I put a lot of part of this link with a blog where you post a portrait of your child every week. So really, I tend more to concentrate on Clementine because she's only 3, and
yeah.
I'm really conscious of Felix growing up, and his friends will read this. They certainly don't.
I don't think they will.
Wait, no, they certainly not don't know about it now, but I do wonder down the
No.
track, would anyone?
Mm.
But and just yeah, I don't. Oh, I have no advice. I'm certainly not anyone who would, I don't know what advice I'd give really. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
so
But I,
technically challenged. I don't know understand much about it. When you were asking in the email questions about the Google Analytics,
yeah, I thought there's no point asking you.
yeah,
Clearly, it's
well,
not going to happen.
I do have a password for that, but I can't remember it, so I don't really look. And
No, I just,
yeah,
yeah.
I think a lot of those uh, um, what are those sites?
Communities, and is that what you mean? Or
No, I think when you open your blog and it shows you where traffic has come from.
yeah,
A
okay.
couple of those are really dodgy sites that aren't, they're dodgy, sending you to somewhere else. Do you know what I mean? It might be a porn site or something, all of that sort of
Oh,
spammy stuff. So I think there's a bit of that, but
yeah.
yeah, and I
But you
don't
know,
really care.
no,
Yeah.
no. And look, I mean, I'm in business, but I still don't care. And if I even like, I have a private blog, and I don't even accept
Yeah,
comments.
right.
It's like, this is one way. It's not really, I'm not writing for anybody else.
No.
It is actually just for
Yeah.
me. And I'll write whatever I want. And Seth Godin, you probably never heard of him, but he's a big internet guy overseas, like sales and marketing
Yeah.
guru, what do you want to call
Yeah.
it, legend. And he said he turned off his comments
Yeah.
because he was sick of writing and worrying about what other
People
people would
think.
think.
That's right.
And then he was actually affecting how he wrote,
Yeah. That's right.
because he knew, if I write this, then someone's going to say, "Oh, but what about that, Seth?" And he just, then it
Yeah.
just changed what I was doing. So
Yeah.
I totally get where you're coming from,
Well, I
and
think
I think,
what I've learned just from having the life I've had with my children, I don't care, and this will sound really, um, this might sound very arrogant, but I don't care what other people think,
no, no.
and I
But
don't,
I don't think any bloggers do, really.
yeah, yeah,
I really don't. I
yeah,
certainly don't.
yeah.
And I would always shut down anyone that gave me a nasty comment. I wouldn't
Well,
respond.
I
I'd just
do
go,
moderate
delete.
comments because I do think I don't want anything negative, it's,
Of
yeah,
course.
so, and I do think you
Yeah.
have control over that, so,
I'm 100%
yeah,
with you. There's some people that say, "Oh, it's a blog. You've got to expect other
yeah,
people's input." I'm thinking, no, I don't. It's my
your
real
blog,
estate.
yeah,
I do what I want.
yeah.
You don't like it,
That's
don't
right.
read it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's honestly, that's my opinion. So, um, yeah. I mean, I was just trying to think what I was going to say, and now I've lost it. No, it's gone.
Mm.
It was to do with comments and what other
Other people
people
think,
think.
yeah.
It'll come back to me about 10 minutes. That's what
Yeah.
normally happens
Yeah.
now. Now that I'm 40, everything goes
Oh
slow.
no. Yeah.
I know. But yeah, so look, is there anything else you want to discuss though before I wrap it
Oh,
up and let you
no, I'm
go?
happy to whatever. Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Mm.
Look, it was lovely talking to you, and
Yeah.
I think that you pretty much write for you and your family, and that's the
Yeah.
way it's always going to be. And
Yeah.
and I know you hate the word journey,
Yeah.
but your journey is really unique, and anything
Yeah.
you do would be seen as sane in the context of your life. So, how you operate now is almost irrelevant, and it's just,
Yeah.
you need to get through life and
Well, I
just,
think
yeah,
too, getting back to how I started, I think because that's the thing that I always think we don't belong into this little, we're not just a family with a disability. We have death and,
yeah.
there's so many little
There's
things
so
you
much
could
more to it.
think. Yeah. So I think that's really, I started writing really just to get my head around it, actually. And I find it really hard to get my head around a lot of what's going on. And I say a lot that I have great, I've had some great counseling and I see people and I'm really happy to talk about my feelings because I know I
Mm,
need to. But
mm,
that's what I say, I don't feel that I don't know of anyone else who, and that's what I say to Felix. Felix will often say to me, Mum, he doesn't know anyone with a sister like Ruby, and he doesn't know anyone who's lost somebody, and at that age. So
mm.
yeah, I think that's really, I just started writing because it was such a different, well, I mean, it's my life, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I hope that makes sense,
Yeah.
Kate. You edit
No,
all
it
this out.
does.
Yeah.
It's perfect sense. And I mean, to me, you're the altruistic blogger, the one that just writes because that's what you do, and what
Yeah.
other people think is irrelevant. I know what I was going to say. See, I told you,
Yeah.
10 minutes. If you were putting stuff on YouTube, you would get a lot of the nasty stuff
Right.
because
Yeah.
there's a lot of trolls
Oh,
there, but not,
yeah.
they don't really come to the blogs like
Right.
yours.
Yeah.
They never get there, They'll
Yeah.
go for the big bloggers,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the big bloggers will wipe them off, that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But so no, I mean, where you are, you're safe. And
Yeah.
I think you said you check it, don't you? That they have to be approved or
Well, I do the
something.
moderated thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do that too now.
Yeah.
In fact, they have to be registered to blog on,
Oh,
to
okay.
comment
Yeah.
on mine, which is a blogspot blog, my hobby blog.
Yeah.
So, they have to be registered, and even then, I still moderate. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, look,
Mm.
that's what blogs are for. Everything
Yeah.
is different. So, I am grateful for your
Yeah, no
time.
worries.
It was lovely to
Lovely
talk
talking
to
to
you.
you too. Thanks so
Thanks, Cal.
much. Take care.
Thanks,
Have a good
baby.
week.
No worries, mate.
Radio.
Bye.
Bye.